I'm going to sue Jaqui. I owe nothing. There was a debt because of, during the term of COVID-19, my tenants couldn't pay. And they were supposed to get rebates from the government, and they didn't. But I took it upon myself to pay the debt. So I'm not owing a single cent. And I've requested the CFO to issue me with a letter that confirms that I owe nothing.
The DA maintains that Modise should be held to account regardless.
It does break down the credibility of credit control and cut-offs being done by the city. It does break down the ability of the city doing collections. So it does do a great harm, and the leadership in the city and all councillors need to set an example. In the councillors' code of conduct, it also states that councillors are not allowed to have arrear debt. That is why the report initially came to the council, so that the speaker can then write to the MEC to bring this under his consideration.
Machine politically incorrect. Again, got a chance to speak to Jaqui, former MMC, she who made the allegation. And I wanted two things to speak to her about. The allegation, if she stands by it, if according to her, it's a matter with retracting or apologizing, and what are the consequences. She played politics with the answering, and I deliberately held back. And of course, the budget. What does the budget mean? She had a budget. She and Ceiliers Brink had a budget, and now DA is claiming that budget. So I just wanted to understand whose budget is it anyway. And amongst other things, about people who make utterances in the media and refuse to retract is Jaqui Malema, who was then asked if, at the press conference, of course, if what he said against Naledi Pandor on VBS, what does he feel? He said it was politicking. And when I spoke to Jaqui, I felt that as well. Machine politically incorrect. Please listen to what Jaqui had to say about all of those, including the allegation that Ceiliers Brink is corrupt, the family that is. So that allegation still stood because Bonzo had made a promise that he will pursue it. Thank you very much. Machine politically incorrect. We are back at DA caucus. We've got the DA caucus leader. Last time we spoke to her, she was heading the finance. She was the MMC of finance in the city of Tshwane. She has since left office, and the incumbent is the topic of today. Jaqui, how are you?
Good, and you?
So tell us, I want you to educate us on just few basic things from the city of Tshwane, and maybe it will teach us other councils as well. I just want to understand, how does it work? In the past, allegations and innuendos were passed in the council. So in the public, we might basically have an idea of what is parliamentary caucus and what constitutes, according to you, or what does constitute someone maybe defaming you in a council sitting?
So in a council sitting, we should be able to speak freely, but you still cannot break the law. For example, Councillor Ramabodu from the EFF was taken on for the allegation or the calls that he made for the Bloed af Afrikaner, and he wants to moereboer and things like that. Because there is consequences to those comments outside of council. So it's not something that, that just stays inside of council. In the specific situation that we're talking about today, The comments wasn't only made in council; they were also made in the media and outside. So, although we should be able to speak freely in council, there is situations where there is consequences for what you said and what you did. If you physically attack another councillor, and you hurt and cause them bodily harm on an individual, then of course there will remain consequences to that, which we have also seen in the Tshwane Council before.
Take me back to, he said he wants to taste or murk the blood of an Afrikaner.
Yes.
And
yes.
What happened afterwards?
So there was actually cases opened at the Human Rights Commission against Ramabodu. He was, of course, also referred to the Rules and Ethics Committee of the council, where he then says he apologised and withdraw the comment. Before the referral. Rules also does allow for that. So the speaker gives you the opportunity to first rule, or to first apologise or withdraw. And that's the right course of action to take. So in cases like these, your first course is always to refer to the Rules and Orders of Council, and the Rules and Orders Committee then sit and they decide on what the correct course of action going forward is. And that is also the route that should any councillor have an issue with what another councillor says, it needs to be discussed by the Rules and Orders Committee to see if there was merit in the concerns raised.
It's not the only one that I've noticed because I watch council. There was an allegation, of course, in council where it was said Mayor Brink, I can't remember, but I remember the councillor, I think it's Benjamin Matebula, he said he does what in his office? I think he takes his pens off or something like that in the office. So I just want to understand such a move. If someone casts such aspersions on you and you drag him and then he apologizes, that will be the end? That will be the end, okay.
Yes. If he does not apologise or withdraw, then it gets referred to the committee to make a ruling on what the consequences should be.
And the worst thing that could happen to the councillor?
No, there's various. I mean, if it is needed for a criminal case, then a criminal case can be opened.
Oh, okay. No,
yes.
Then I understand. Let's talk about Bonso Modise.
Yes.
Immediately after his speech, you took on to congratulate him, and you hoed some spice on it. Explain that.
Look, it's important for this to not be seen as hoed some spice on it. Mm-hmm. There is responsibilities, number one, on councillors to ensure that their accounts are paid up to date. Also, it is fundamental to the financial rescue of the city for those who owe the city money to pay their accounts. Now, this is why when I was MMC of Finance, we did quite a big drive on Tshwane Atima, where we went to go and cut off electricity, to those who don't pay, and those who can't pay. We assisted them with indigent applications, with payment arrangements, with affordability committee arrangements, because every resident in the city of Tshwane needs to take responsibility of their accounts. Now, in August this year, a report served in council that showed that Councillor Bonso Modise owed the city almost 700,000 rand, and that can't be. You can't be leading the financial recovery of the city should you owe the city that amount of money. So I cautioned him and I asked him that for the credibility of the collections campaign, which is the most difficult part of the financial rescue of the city, is the collections campaign. And for the credibility of the collections campaign, all mayoral committee members need to ensure that their accounts are up to date and that they are not in arrears. So it was a request and a caution. It's respectful also to those whose finances you deal with, because in council we don't deal with our own money; it's residents' money, and it is respectful to, if I have to go out and ask a resident to pay their account, it is respectful for my account to then also be up to date.
Okay, two things.
Yes.
When you were advising him, was it during handover
At what stage was it?
So we did have a handover the day before. We prepared a full file on projects that we were working on, and the importance of credit control and debt collection was discussed in that meeting as well. And therefore, I continued that discussion then in council.
I spoke to people on the ground. They say, if it were me, the city would have either disconnected and. I just want to check, is it multiple accounts, multiple properties? And when you answer that, do we have a cap in the city of who must then be disconnected for them to come and request for, at what threshold do you put this one, we disconnect and the person must come and request for payment arrangement?
Yes. So it's multiple accounts, and the city's disconnection drive has to focus on all accounts, where you either disconnect, but then you also know that you can make a minimal payment and get reconnected back again. People also then who owe the city receive letters to say, that the city will go ahead and blacklist them if they do not settle their accounts. And councillors are part of that normal process. But councillors, according to our code of conduct, is also higher. At a higher responsibility than just that. And this is the reason why we initially brought the report to council in August. And what we tried to achieve was to bring the responsibility to the Speaker, because it is his responsibility to either ensure that these fees are deducted from councillors' salaries, or to write to the MEC to take action onto these councillors. Because although councillors form part of the usual credit control, there is also a layer that is above that, where the Speaker also they need to take responsibility for councillors' debt specifically.
The long and short of it, do you still believe he owes the city?
I believe that he paid it just before he became an MMC, for which I'm very glad, because that is ultimately all that should happen. It's not a criminal offence not to pay your account, but you are held liable for the debt that you do owe. And he did pay, which is ultimately all that the city needs.
Can you guarantee that he did pay?
I'm taking the city's word on it. Remember, the city issued a statement that was backed by the CFO to say that it has been settled.
Okay. Do you see yourself in the wrong inside council and outside council?
Not at all. The information was public already because it served in council, and it was a report of council. The information was in there. The information that I raised in council, I got from a report that served in council. I did not get it from any other source. So it was already a public record. But regardless of whether it was a public record or not, as a councillor, and as somebody who was responsible for the finances of the city, it is very important that we do call out those who does wrong, and that we do call out those that do not do what they are supposed to do. And what is it different from the city going out and saying shopping centre X has just been cut because they did not pay their electricity, but now we're saying councillors need to be protected from that? That we can't do. We cannot have special treatment onto councillors. So even if this was not a matter of public record, which it is, we need to treat everybody the same, and we can't have special treatments for councillors.
Have you spoken to him after all differences have been cleared, and do you have a cordial colleague opposition relationship?
Yes, I have. I've spoken to Councillor Modise just after the meeting. He did say that he will open up a case against me for defamation, which is fully his right to do. We've got a legal process in this country, and that legal process need to follow its course if he chooses to do so. But the point remains, it is public record. Then we also need to understand that it is in the interest of the public for politicians to, number one, differ. It's important for us to differ. If politicians came together and we just sang Kumbaya all day long, we would not be growing our country. It is important for politicians to be able to say the difficult things. But then it is equally as important for us to come together and to do what is best for the residents of the city that we serve. And part of that means that we need to ensure that we can work together. Whether we are in different political parties, whether we are, in opposition, some are in government and others is in opposition. It is important for the residents of Tshwane that politicians can be mature and put aside personal differences and serve the residents.
Okay. So, as it stands, you and Ponzo don't drink tea together, and because he's pursuing you legally, in your personal capacity, that is, of course?
No, he hasn't pursued. He said he was.
He was.
But he hasn't, not yet.
Oh,
no.
okay. You have not been served.
No, not been served.
Okay. Can I pass that and talk to the second topic, which is the budget?
Mm-hmm.
And please forgive my ignorance on this one. How many budgets do you guys have, and how many terms does this budget have? It seems immediate when you guys left office, there was this 2 billion that was available for township infrastructure.
So there's only one budget.
Okay, let me give it back to you. Please
So
explain.
there's only one budget.
Okay.
The budget was approved on the 6th of June after I delivered the speech on the 4th of June. The Municipal Finance Act then says that you can bring adjustment budgets, but there's very strict rules and when you can bring adjustments budgets and what you can do in adjustments budgets. And the adjustments budget period is only in February. So the current budget that the city is working on is the budget that was approved on the 6th of June as tabled by Mayor Ceiliers Brink.
Okay, so let me ask you what I've been asking everyone. I've asked Gwen as well. So do you think there are merits to the allegation that has been clouding your administration, that you are concentrating your resources and energies on the east side of the city and some parts where in Sababia where ratepayers would be white, unlike the Ososhanguve, Mamelodis and stuff? Is there merit to it? Because then I want to tie the question up with the budget, on the reflection of the budget. Do you want to?
So that's a narrative that political parties have been trying to drive for a while, and it isn't true. The largest chunk of the budget that was tabled had a 2 billion rand capital side to it, and the rest was operation. The biggest part of the capital budget, majority there of this, is grants. And grants get spent mostly in areas as specified by national government, and also areas that needs development, which is then the majority of those projects are in traditional what we refer to as township areas. There is some projects in suburban areas, but the majority of them is in areas where there is largely black largely black residents. You then have the operational side of the budget, which is split up in the 7 regions of the city, and ultimately the priorities of a government is seen as to where they spend their money. And again, even on the operational side, it is not a case of the majority of those are spent in suburban areas. What is in actual fact true is that the operational budget is allocated to what is called ROC, the Regional Operations Centre. And from there's then decisions made by officials on how that is distributed under the watchful eye of the government. So that it's a narrative that has been they try to drive, but it's not true. And we saw this now with where it was claimed that this is a racist budget that was tabled by myself and Ceiliers, and then literally after Mayor Nasipi was elected, she came and said, "Oh no, it's a budget that looks after township areas." It's exactly the same budget. It's a document that was approved on the 6th of June. There is no new budget that has miraculously been brought into, or been brought into the city. So it's the same budget. But I guess it depends on who says that it's not a racist budget.
So it's very confusing for us. So I think you could have said, like all these 7 regions, let's say you would allocate something to Region 3, which is the city center and the west parts, and is it where the rock is? They then decide which are their priorities, then they dispense there. So you are confident that all these regions are getting what they need to do, and it is in those regions where like the operational and the capital projects are taken care of.
So there was tough decisions that was made by the previous government. One of them was that we didn't budget for contractors to fix streetlights. Okay? And the fact that streetlights wasn't fixed is not something that was unique to specific areas in the city. Streetlights was not fixed across the city because we made the difficult decision not to pay contractors and rather use the people who are already employed by the city, working by the city and getting a salary. So if we've got a workforce that is working, why pay a contractor as well? But then you saw a period where streetlights wasn't fixed. And very often there's then the thought that, oh no, only certain areas do not get service, because in some other areas, communities came forward and said, we would like to take hands with the city and fix our own streetlights. So there can be a disparity that looked, to that extent. If we go to cleaning of illegal dumping, the majority of the budget of clearing of illegal dumping is spent in township areas. And the current budget has got about 111 million in for that. And it's unfortunately just not enough to clear all of the illegal dumping that has been in the area. We then augmented it as the previous administration by ensuring that more households have bins, so that there is less illegal dumping in the previous, what is called, I've got an issue with the fact that we call certain areas townships and others not, but let's stick to the term township areas, because there's issues with bins in township areas. So we had a project of giving out bins to areas where it is needed. So no, there is the narrative of certain things is only for those who have, and we do not spend money in the areas that have not, is not true. What is true is that the city is very, very big, and that we do not have enough money to serve every area properly. So we stretch it out as far as what we can, and what it then results in is that everybody gets little pieces and nobody gets completely enough. And in some communities, the communities then augmented themselves.
Twofold question.
Yes.
One coming from Randall. Randall spoke about how Ceiliers administration had increased the budget to make it look clean. Please, I want you to think about how you're going to explain it to the audience with less complicated financial jargon. And the second one is, Bonzo has said to me when I asked him about the allegation of Ceiliers' uncle having been involved, he says he knows about that and they have tabled it. They have also contacted the SIU to investigate. Do you know any of any of this?
Well, if there's wrongdoing any place, that it needs to be investigated, and the truth needs to come out. I would like to see said SIU case, because we can very often also say things and then, but What we cannot have is allegations on things that are not true, allegations of things that are not public knowledge. And should there be a case that needs to be opened, then it needs to be opened. It needs to be looked at. The DA has never been a party that shy away from the truth, but in this specific instance, there has only been Twitter remarks on some allegations in the run-up to a motion of no confidence, and there has been no proof put on the table. There is no, to my knowledge, cases that has been opened. And we also can't go around saying things, of people that aren't true. That we can't have doing. I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to from what Randall said. No, I listened to majority of his interview, but I did not pick up on anything where he said we increased the budget. The city does not have the capacity to increase the budget. We have an unfunded budget, and we've got a deficit of about 4 billion rand. We have been working very hard to collect and try and reduce that 4 billion. But no, there was definitely not an increase in budget, no.
Okay. Last one, should an opportunity to come for a monk that gives you good numbers before 2026, would you be tempted to take it as the DA because you lead caucus? Would you be tempted to take it, or for now you've just folded your sleeve, you're waiting for 2026?
So look, we have committed ourselves to be a constructive opposition, and that means that we will hold the government of the day responsible, and they might not like it, as what has now happened with me calling Bonzo to pay his account. But we will also make constructive contributions, which I also did when I did a handover to Bonzo and pointed some things out that we need to look out for. It is very difficult to discuss, what the future is. We need to do what is best for the residents of the city at all times. And what is fundamentally really bad for any municipality is instability. Instability is worse than what any government can be. And as a responsible opposition, we need to ensure that we provide stability. Currently, that is stability in the form of an opposition that is not actively pursuing to topple the government, an opposition that is settling into our role of opposition. But should there be a future time when in the government itself becomes instability, then all of the parties in council, not only the DA, all of the parties in council will then have to look at what is the best for the residents in that time. But that is not something that is in our hands. That is something that is in the hands of the government of the day, and they also have a responsibility to ensure stability. They have formed this government. They have made it their choice to govern the city, and now they have a responsibility to keep it stable and to keep this coalition that they have going, the coalition between the ANC, Action SA, and the EFF. They need to keep that stable. It's going to be difficult for them because Action SA, although they have the mayor's seat, they don't have the power in the dynamic. That lies with Action or with the ANC, and then of course the EFF themselves. We've known, we see what has happened in Joburg. So it is a coalition of chaos, but they have taken this upon themselves, and now they've got a responsibility to sort it out amongst themselves.
Machine politically incorrect. You saw how she dodged the possibility of a monk if it presents itself. I'm not going to follow up that question again. Jaqui, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Naledi Pandor was also in the VBS bond or something, which she was there. They are your darlings. You will never know their names. You know the names of those you don't like to demonstrate there's no principle.
Many people in the social media believed what he said and made comments about me, which were in line with the lie that he had uttered. So I'm, glad that his lawyers on his behalf have cleared it up. I will discuss with our lawyers. I believe he has defamed me, but is it worth pursuing, given the character that we're seeing?
And then on Mama Naledi Shemai, I was making a political engagement in that interview. It's a political speech. It's a political speak. And I raised her name, and she clarified those things, that she has never been involved in those things and all of that. And she wrote a letter to me to ask for instruction and all of that. And I said, look, it's a political engagement. I respect you so much, and I've accepted the explanation you have given, and I don't intend to pursue that line, because now there is more clarity on what really transpired. And I've sent that letter, and I don't want to engage with her in a public spect. It's one of the respectable former ministers of our country who's at the forefront of fighting the struggles for the total liberation of Palestine. Why do you want to go into confrontation with such a person? So I did not say that to want to negatively impact on her image or anything. I was engaged in a political engagement. And she came back and said, no, but you are wrong. I'm not involved in the way you are describing it. I don't know what you're talking about and all of that, and accepted that. And that's a political engagement. That's how it works. So political speech is protected by the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. And that speech is presented differently from how lectures are presented in lecture halls. So we can't, when we're engaged in political speech, always be threatening each other with letters. I've written back and I said, look, I don't want to fight with the minister. I engaged the way I engaged, and she engaged the way she engaged. I accept clarity, and I don't want to pursue that line of argument. So that's the end of it. If she wants to pursue it, that's her own issue, but I'm not in that space anymore.